first song you can hear is God Bless the Child. Earlier this year I bought some jazz saxophone music. The books contained several songs of jazz standards that I knew. Some well and some not so well. But there were other songs I didn't know, and one was God Bless the Child. And the melody was gentle, lilting and wistful, beautiful. And I was intrigued by this song, and particularly the title, God Bless the Child. So I looked it up, and it was a collaboration by Arthur Herzog Jr. and Billie Holiday, the jazz singer. It was recorded or written in 1939, recorded a couple of years later, and released in 1942, and became a hit, almost an anthem, I suppose, for much of the black community. And Billie Holiday sang this at various places in various ways. It was covered by many people. And some say it was a beginning really of that civil rights movement, the movement towards that civil rights movement, the build-up. It begins with a paraphrase of a biblical quote that comes from either Matthew or Luke. Both Gospels have a version of this related to faith or wisdom or trust. In the song it says, those who have get more and those who don't lose, basically. Those who have get more and those who don't, tough luck. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, And that phrase, God bless the child that's got his own, Billy recalls uttering after an argument with a mother. She'd lent a mother, or given a mother, I think, thousands of dollars to start up a cafe business. And when her own funds were getting low, she asked the mother for a loan, and the mother said outright no. And it led to an argument, and Billy stormed off in a huff saying, God bless the child that's got his own. In other words, the one who has must be blessed. Blessed by God, blessed by society, blessed. Tough luck for the one who doesn't have. And they built this song around it, and it goes on and it talks about, I guess, the situation that they found themselves in Black America. It wasn't just Billy and a mum, but those who have get more and those who don't lose the little they have. You can have rich uncles, but you only get a crust of bread at the table. They lived in what is probably the wealthiest nation in the world in the 20th century, in America, and yet they had access to few resources. The music industry, I guess, typified the situation for people of colour. They wrote songs, they performed songs, there were some brilliant performers and bands amongst them. They played at particular venues. They weren't allowed into the good ones because of the colour of their skin. When they wrote and performed songs, the white music executives claimed the songs as their own and claimed the royalties for themselves and paid a pittance to the true copyright owners and the people who performed the music. Those who had got more and those who didn't lost the little they had. That was the lot for people. But in their world, in black music, there were the movement between the blues songs, which spoke of this reality, the harshness of life, of slavery that had finished only 80 years before, but the impact was still around, the segregation, the rejection, the oppression of people of dark skin colour. The blues sang of the harshness of life, the reality of this world. And then the spirituals, the religious tradition, the religious songs spoke of hope and justice, but it was all in the afterlife, predominantly. What about this life and the transformation? In churches, they spoke about hope and transformation and the gospel's message of love and peace and justice. And it's almost in this song that Billy and Arthur are asking, where is it? Your faith talks about it, but where is it? When it comes to practical realities, we don't see it. The world isn't changing for us. Why do we have to wait till we die to find this justice of God? If the Bible talks about it now, if that's what Jesus' words are about. And it was almost a call to action. God helps those who help themselves. Come on, people, let's get with it. If this is what our faith talks about, let's get on board. Let's live it. Let's live into it. And of course, when Martin Luther King Jr. and others took on a more expansive civil rights movement, it was shrouded in that gospel call for justice and hope and peace, of sharing the resources of the world with those who need it, of not discriminating based on colour of skin or language or culture or faith or politics or anything else, but of all humans sitting down at this common table and sharing in the meal together, the food together. So everyone has enough and no one has too much or too little. And this week in Luke's story, Jesus' words reach into this. He's talking to a group of people, maybe his disciples, maybe a crowd, and a guy walks out and says, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." A common thing that a rabbi would be called in to judge in a dispute within families, particularly around the law. But Jesus says, "Who made me judge or arbiter in your affairs? Be careful of the greed of this world," he says to the people. And then he tells a story. There's a rich man who had many lands. And in that time, the way to become rich was to actually create indebtedness in your poorer neighbours. And then when they couldn't pay those debts, foreclose and take their land off them. The land that had been theirs in their family for generations before them. And if they were lucky, they'd become tenant farmers under this wealthy landowner and be paid a pittance to work the land that had been theirs. Barely enough to keep their family fed. 90+% of the people were impoverished and growing into deeper indebtedness and poverty. So there's no sympathy for this landowner who has many lands and who has a bumper crop. The land produces great crop this year. It's a good season. And so being a shrewd manager of his money, he thinks, well, there's a lot of grain around, the prices are depressed. I will store the grain up in my barns and I'll build bigger barns to store it all so that next year or the year after, when the crops aren't so good and the price goes up, I'll make a killing. And then I'll sit back and relax and enjoy life. And in the story, God says, "You fool, for tonight, this very night, your life will be taken from you." The man has no ultimate control over life and death. And Jesus asked the question, what does it do this man? He's got all this stuff, but when his life is finished, so what? What does it all mean? And he encourages us to be rich not in wealth and power and other things, but rich in the things of God. The things of justice, of hope, of love, of peace, of relationship. This man in the story has a dialogue with himself. He says, "Self, I'm rich, what shall I do?" And he talks to himself. There's no one else in the story of this man. He's not in relationship with God. He's not in relationship with people. It's just him. His dying is not just physical, but it's metaphorical. It's symbolic of the symbolic death he dies. When we break relationship with other people, when we hoard and accumulate for ourselves and cling to stuff for ourselves, we lose relationship with other people. We've got to defend ourselves against others. And in so doing, we become isolated, alone. Is that what life is about? Is that what life is for? This passage throws up the meaning of life, or what is meaningful or purposeful, or what is a good life? Is it accumulating and hoarding wealth, as our society encourages us to do, or power or status or something else? Is life about accumulating and getting the most we can and possessing it and owning it? Or is life about relationship? Relationship with other people, relationship with the earth itself, relationship with God? Is it about being in relationship in a community where we share what we have so that no one is deprived and has too little and no one has an excess? We see in not just America of last century, but modern day America, is it 70 or 80 or something percent of the wealth is controlled by 1% of the people. Where if you don't have work that pays your medical insurance, it costs a mozza. And if you don't have medical insurance, you don't get help unless you've got the money to pay for it. And medical insurance companies control how much of surgeries and interventions happen in any year. It's an economic equation, not a health equation. This is the kind of world we're creating. We're living in a world where indigenous peoples across the world are suffering under the colonizers, losing their land, losing their culture, their language, their way of life, their wisdom, a wisdom that might help the rest of us live better. The story of Jesus is one of engaging in relationship, of being in relationship with each other. It's learning to live into this way of love and of justice and of hope and of peace for everyone. Because when everyone is well off, when everyone shares, everyone benefits. And there is life together. And there is peace and justice. And this is what we're called and invited into. It's not an easy way. When we stand up and name these things, it doesn't go well. Billie Holiday sang about this sort of stuff a lot, and the FBI trailed her for the rest of her life, worried about what she might say and do that would challenge the status quo, upset society, create problems for privileged white society. Jesus upset the status quo in saying these things, in demanding people share, that there be enough for the poor of the world, that the impoverished get something out of the work they did that would keep them and their families alive. And they nailed him to a cross. In our world, there is great injustice. There are people this day dying of starvation, dying from lack of clean water, dying from lack of basic medicines that we take for granted. And we can do something about it. This day in refugee camps around the world, millions of people exist, hoping and dreaming of a new life for them and their family. They exist, hoping for a meal today, for food to get through, for the help they need when they're sick, for someone somewhere to reach out and welcome them into a new home. The way of Jesus calls us into this, to make a difference, to change the world in his strength and power, in the power of God's Spirit, to make a difference and to live into a new way for our world. What can you and I do this week that will make a difference for at least one person, but maybe many more? What's the one thing that you and I can do in this way of Jesus?